Hello, this is Gray Hughes. Last night I did a live video on the Hart case on an update. When I was at my parents' house having dinner, my sister-in-law got an update saying that the car was driving at 90 miles an hour that the Hart family was in when they all perished. Okay, and I had been discussing it earlier with them, and she found the update. So when I got home, I looked up an article, and we went live, and live went longer and longer and longer. So when I upload it, YouTube only puts the last 2 hours. However, the chat portion starts at minute 1, so everything is off sync. So I just deleted that video, and what I'm going to do now is put up a video with the same information, but just a regular video here, okay, so that we can get the same information out. Okay, and another reason too to delete the lives is a lot of trolls show up, and even on the comments in my videos we have trolls show up. One showed up today claiming, oh, great, you need to be investigated, okay? It's just wild. Doesn't matter what case I make videos on, everybody thinks they need to investigate me. They're so curious. Like, why don't you just do your own videos or something, or investigate yourself for actually thinking that way? Why don't you go see a psychologist, all right? Maybe that'll help you out. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go over the case with the new information that I got last night, talking about the 90 miles an hour, all right? So let's take a look at this news article right here. All right. So it says the speedometer in the car of a Woodland family who died in a crash on the California coastline was pinned at 90 miles an hour. Okay, so the speedometer was pinned at 90 miles an hour, indicating to officers the vehicle was running and in motion just prior to hitting the rocks below, according to court documents. A search warrant was served at the home of Jennifer Hart and Sarah Margaret Hart on Thursday. A search warrant affidavit was granted in Clark County in connection with this investigation for items including travel itinerary, bank records, cell phone records, credit card billing statements, bank receipts, notes, journals, and possible suicide notes. No details have been released about the results of the search at the couple's home. The couple purchased the home in May 2017 and previously lived in West Linn, Oregon. Okay, so right now they lived in Woodland, Washington, and they bought the house May 2017, so they hadn't even lived there a year yet. The Harts and at least 3 of their adopted children were killed after Jennifer Hart drove off a cliff near Highway 1 in the Westport area of Mendocino County on Monday, according to deputies. You know, I'm curious if law enforcement's going to interview the neighbors when they lived in West Linn, okay, because you sort of see a pattern here. They might have moved from that area because people were noticing something as well. It's hard to say. Their 3 other adopted children were believed to be in the car, according to deputies, but they have not been located. All right, so at this point, they still haven't found 3 of the children, and but they believe they were in the car. But I think it's possible that, you know, if this was done intentionally, that those 3 kids were killed elsewhere. All right. Investigators said there was no evidence the car collided with the embankment as it traversed towards the tidal zone below. So that's crazy, right? That means that the car did not even hit the embankment above, where there's a little bit of a rise. It just somehow drove and then flew off the cliff. It's probably very frustrating for them not to be able to see a clear track of how the car got where it got. All right. So based upon the California Highway Patrol investigation, it is their beliefs a felony has been committed, according to court documents. And I think the felony would be reckless endangerment. You have 2 parents buckled into their seats, and then 6 children that are not buckled into their seats and driving 90 miles an hour. Okay, that is about as dangerous as you can get right there. Basically, the rest of the stuff in this article is stuff that we already know, that the neighbors called Child Protective Services, and that the family, after being served a notice by CPS, they were actually in the house but didn't answer the door. They actually, after CPS left, they packed up all their stuff and left, and that was on March 23rd. So a person actually saw the vehicle on the ground by the cliff on the 26th. So we have a 2.5 to 3 day time period here of missing time. All right, now let's take a look at this, at Google Earth right here. Now, I think Google Earth has an error here in terms of the elevation. You see how it's like this really high and then it dips down? It almost seems like you could sort of slide into the water there. That's an error. So if you actually look at this drone video here, you'll see that it's actually high all the way around. So it's high and maybe dips slightly, you know, 5 or 6 feet, but that's it. Google Earth has it almost flat there. So if we were going to look at this image here, they said there's no car marks on any of the embankment, you know, and an embankment, you know, it's like a rise. All right, so if you go to Street View, for example, you can see what they're talking about. Right there. All right, so this would be the embankment right there. And they see no car marks on the embankment. All right, and that would even include there. So it almost appears like it drove really fast, flew in the air, and then somehow landed on the roof of the car. So the two drivers were still in the car, the parents, Jennifer and Sarah, and 3 kids were found outside the vehicle, you know, somewhere down here. Okay, so here's the tire tracks from the tow truck that pulled up the car. So that's how you can, you know where the actual car was in relation to this shot here. So the car was right down here, right, the SUV, and they drove, and perhaps they just turned right there going really fast and then came flying off of this area right here and somehow flipped over onto their back. You know, perhaps they hit part of the wall in here. We don't have that information yet. Okay, they just said there's no evidence that the car hit the embankment. So you'd think that they were just going really fast, turned, and then flew off right here, and then maybe hit the ground here and then flipped on its back. But it seems like the car actually landed on its back. Okay, so that's what's confusing. All right, so you know, I don't know, I don't have any of the physics calculations or anything like that at this point to tell you how far the car would fly. That's not really my expertise. I've used it before in other cases, but you know, I didn't go to school. I'm not a physics major. All right, so I'm sure you could do some calculations based on the weight of the car and the speed and you know, velocity, and then come up with a calculation on how far it could travel going 90 miles an hour going off the edge of this cliff. And then what you could probably do is at that point arc around and figure out where it would have had to have left to also then stay that close to the bank. Because if you're going 90 miles an hour, let's say you're on this side road where Steve from Europe thinks, if you're going 90 miles an hour, I don't think there's enough space to go 90 miles an hour, and also there's a guardrail right there, and the car went off over here. But let's say you're going 90 miles an hour from this direction, and you flew off. The car would land out in the ocean out here. Okay, it was found on the rocks down here, crushed. So it seems to me that it would have had to have hugged the cliff line, you know, like coming off at like an angle like this. And that's just my opinion. And if you guys like to come up with your own opinions and put them in the comments, that would be great. Okay, because this is pretty confusing at this point. I'm pretty sure that the car didn't go this direction because there's a guardrail right there. And in photographs, the drone footage, if you look at the drone footage right here, you can see the guardrails are intact. Okay, so if a car going 90 miles an hour, it would be almost impossible to turn maintaining 90 miles an hour and then almost make a 90-degree right-handed turn and go off this cliff right here. All right? That's almost impossible. The car would flip and roll and go this direction. So I think it would almost had to have come this way. Now, if you look at this road too, that doesn't make sense either, because an SUV like that wouldn't be able to get up to 90 miles an hour going off just in that short distance. It's only 100 yards or so from here to here. So I believe that the car had to have been coming this direction and then, you know, veer off, still going 90, and then fire off the edge of that cliff. All right? So that's my opinion. And I think I'm going to do another video later, because there are actually some videos that have come out of the kids, and it's pretty strange, actually. They seem to be at different events, almost like they've been used as propaganda. You know, and the kids got the free hug sign 2 years prior to the actual hug he gave the officer. And there's some evidence, I didn't even think about it at the time, but there was videos made at the time showing that it was kind of a staged event. It wasn't really natural. Okay, and in some of these videos you see he's sort of put on stage, and it again seems a bit staged. You know, it almost seems like these kids are being used as some sort of, I don't know what kind of propaganda. Kind of feels a little cultish. You know, that's just the vibe that I'm getting. But you know, you can view the videos for yourself and decide, and I'll be putting out a video on that a little bit later. Okay, so until next time, I hope everybody's safe out there. Talk to you later.